The Snow Walker is the kind of survival drama that lets an arrogant pilot do all the talking, then quietly reveals that the sick young woman beside him is the only one who actually knows how to stay alive. Out on the tundra, confidence is cheap. Competence is everything. The story begins in Yellowknife, Canada, in 1953. The Second World War has been over for years, but its shadow still follows Charlie Halliday. Charlie is a former fighter pilot with 12 years of experience, and he is now considered one of the best bush pilots in the region. People admire his nerve and his skill, and all that praise has gone straight to his head. He has become reckless, arrogant, and convinced that he can handle anything. Even Estelle, the woman who genuinely cares about him, never receives the attention she deserves. On the morning of Charlie's birthday, a frantic knock wakes him after a long night of drinking and celebrating. He was supposed to be at work already. The moment he realizes how late he is, he throws on his clothes and rushes out. Estelle has prepared a birthday present for him, but Charlie does not even have time to open it. He casually promises that he will do it when he returns, never imagining how much his life is about to change. By the time Charlie reaches the airfield, his boss, Walter Shepard, and the waiting customers have been standing around for quite a while. Charlie does not seem especially embarrassed. Instead, he asks Shep for permission to make a private detour after completing the scheduled flight so he can earn some extra money. Shep knows Charlie is difficult, but he also respects his ability in the air. He gives Charlie 2 extra days and allows him to make the side trip. He delivers his passengers without trouble, then flies farther into Canada's northeastern wilderness, deep inside the Arctic region. The land below seems endless, a vast open world of lakes, rock, and tundra. He eventually lands near a small Inuit camp to collect fuel. When the people there see him unloading the barrels, they immediately help him. Charlie thanks them by sharing the chocolate he carries with him. After a quiet discussion, 2 men ask Charlie to follow them. Inside one of the tents, he finds a seriously ill young Inuk woman. Her name is Kanaalaq, and her coughing suggests tuberculosis. Charlie instinctively backs away, afraid of the disease. The men want him to fly Kanaalaq to a town where she can receive medical treatment. Charlie wants no part of the responsibility and starts to leave. Then one of the men brings him a wrapped bundle. Inside are 2 valuable walrus tusks. Charlie may not feel much compassion for Kanaalaq, but he understands exactly what the ivory is worth. The payment changes his mind. He lifts Kanaalaq into the plane and agrees to take her south. Once they are in the air, Charlie tries to make conversation, but Kanaalaq barely responds. She knows only a few words of English, while Charlie knows none of her Inuktitut language. He assumes the flight will remain awkward but uneventful. Then the instruments begin to fall. A mechanical failure sends the plane shaking violently, and Charlie can no longer hold it steady. Despite all his experience, he is forced down into a remote lake. Charlie crawls out of the damaged cockpit alive, but his temper immediately explodes. He screams at the sky and pounds on the aircraft as though rage can repair it. Once the outburst passes, he salvages whatever supplies he can and carries them to shore. Kanaalaq, meanwhile, has already made a simple fishing tool and is trying to catch food. Charlie finds her behavior absurd. They have just survived a crash, and she is calmly fishing in a little lake that may not even contain fish. He returns to the cockpit and tries the radio, only to discover that the impact has destroyed it. When Kanaalaq soon approaches with a fish she has caught and offers it to him, Charlie rejects her kindness. He considers her method primitive and the food unappealing. Still convinced that he is the civilized expert, he cannot yet see that she has understood their situation much faster than he has. Charlie arranges stones into a distress signal and plants a small red flag where it can be seen from the air. That evening, he and Kanaalaq build separate fires. Charlie tries again to communicate, but the language barrier leaves him frustrated. To him, being stranded in the Arctic with a nearly silent stranger feels like an impossible joke. Back in Yellowknife, the company realizes Charlie has not returned. At first, Shep is not alarmed. Charlie is famous for ignoring schedules and chasing whatever pleasure catches his attention, so Shep assumes he may have made another unauthorized stop. Unfortunately, because Charlie changed his route, no one knows where to begin looking for him. The next morning, Charlie studies his map and convinces himself that a settlement lies roughly 200 miles to the east. He decides to walk there alone. He leaves Kanaalaq some food and refuses her attempt to come with him. Through gestures, he tells her to remain near the aircraft until he returns. The moment Charlie reaches higher ground, the scale of the tundra becomes terrifyingly clear. Every direction looks the same. There are no roads, trees, or landmarks to guide him. He cannot even be certain he is walking east, but pride will not let him turn back. The land begins stripping away his confidence almost immediately. The wind makes each step exhausting. His poor aim prevents him from shooting game, so he survives on cold canned food. Rain soaks his clothes and ruins his matches. He sinks into a bog, struggles free, then has to dive back into the mud for his rifle. After recovering the weapon, he realizes he has lost the ammunition magazine. By nightfall, Charlie is cold, wet, and almost completely defeated. He curls inside his sleeping bag for whatever warmth it can provide. The next morning, the deafening buzz of insects wakes him. Clouds of mosquitoes and black flies cover his face and body. He runs blindly while swatting at them, loses his footing on a slope, and tumbles downhill. The fall knocks him unconscious. In Yellowknife, Shep finally accepts that Charlie is in real danger. He organizes a search and sends Pierce and another pilot across the enormous territory. Headquarters wants Charlie officially declared missing, and Shep reluctantly agrees. The men searching for him know the odds are terrible. The northern wilderness is larger than several European countries combined, and Charlie's secret detour has left them with almost no useful trail. When Charlie eventually regains awareness, the insects are gone and someone is beside him. It is Kanaalaq. She ignored his order to wait, followed his trail, and found him before the tundra could finish the job. She removes his boots and treats his damaged feet with moss and cloth. She also applies a natural remedy to the bites covering his face. Several days pass before Charlie fully wakes. He sees Kanaalaq returning with firewood and becomes agitated, but she gestures for him to lie down and uses one English word he understands: sleep. Charlie is startled to learn that she speaks even a little English. Kanaalaq makes it clear that her vocabulary is limited, then gives him hot food. After days of rain, cold, hunger, and insects, the first mouthful feels like a feast. Charlie notices the scar on Kanaalaq's wrist, but does not yet know enough about her to ask what happened. Instead, he thanks her for saving him and wonders how she obtained the meat. Using the animal's fur and simple gestures, Kanaalaq shows him how she caught it. For the first time, Charlie begins looking at her with genuine respect. The woman he dismissed can fish, hunt, navigate, make medicine, and live comfortably in a place that nearly killed him in a few days. Charlie finally asks her name. At first, Kanaalaq shows him the numbered identification tag issued by the government, but Charlie makes it clear that he wants her real name, not a number assigned by outsiders. The question touches her because it treats her as a person. She tells him she is Kanaalaq, and he introduces himself as Charlie. It is a small exchange, but it marks the beginning of an entirely different relationship. Pierce and another pilot eventually reach the area where Charlie stopped for fuel, but the Inuit families have already moved on. One searcher believes there is almost no chance Charlie could still be alive in a territory so vast that several European countries and Greenland could fit inside it. Charlie's friend refuses to accept that conclusion. Because of his insistence, the two men continue searching instead of turning back. While the search planes comb the wilderness, Kanaalaq takes charge of keeping Charlie alive. She lies motionless beside a burrow for an entire afternoon, waiting with extraordinary patience. Charlie is ready to give up when a ground squirrel finally appears. Kanaalaq pulls her snare at exactly the right moment and catches it cleanly. Charlie is amazed by both her patience and her speed. That is only one of the skills she begins teaching him. Kanaalaq can fashion hunting tools from almost nothing, throw a spear accurately, and turn a discarded bottle cap into fishing equipment. Each success excites Charlie like a child. The more he learns, the more ridiculous his old assumptions become. The person he once regarded as helpless is now his teacher, provider, and only realistic chance of survival. As the days pass, they exchange words from their languages. Their conversations remain simple, but gestures, expressions, and shared work allow them to understand each other. The emotional distance between them begins to disappear. At the same time, Kanaalaq's illness keeps advancing. One day her nose starts bleeding, and the coughing returns. That night, Charlie hears her crying beneath the blankets. For a man who once believed he could control every situation, watching her suffer is a new and unbearable kind of helplessness. The following day, Charlie hears an aircraft in the distance. He runs to high ground, waving and shouting, but never catches sight of it. The sound is enough to convince him that his coworkers are searching. He decides they must return to the crash site, where the plane, stone signal, and red flag will be easier to spot. Kanaalaq does not share his excitement. Before they leave, she insists that he put on a pair of boots she has made for him. Charlie doubts they will help until he steps into shallow water and discovers they are completely waterproof. He laughs with delight, splashes around, and plays beside the lake with Kanaalaq. Their brief moment of happiness makes it clear how much their relationship has changed. They are no longer a pilot and an unwanted passenger. They are partners. After several days of walking, Charlie notices a flash of reflected light across the tundra. He rushes toward it, hoping they have found rescuers, but the light comes from the goggles of a dead pilot beside an old military wreck. The sight is grim, yet the abandoned aircraft contains equipment that could make survival easier. Charlie begins gathering useful items. Kanaalaq becomes visibly troubled and refuses to help. At first, he does not understand why. He decides to bury the dead airman, and Kanaalaq carries flat stones to build a proper grave. Then she places the dead man's tools inside it. Charlie hesitates because those tools might save their lives, but after watching her, he places the weapon in the grave as well. That night, Kanaalaq explains the belief behind her actions as clearly as their limited shared language allows. In her culture, death does not leave a hunter with nothing. The spirit travels to another land where animals still have to be hunted, so the dead must be buried with the tools needed for that journey. Charlie begins to understand that her actions are not wasteful or irrational. They are an expression of duty and respect. Kanaalaq is teaching him to honor people, traditions, and ways of living that he once judged without understanding. When they finally reach Charlie's crashed plane again, the little red flag is still standing exactly where he left it. No supplies, message, or sign of rescue is waiting for them. His renewed hope collapses. Charlie attacks the wreck, then turns his anger on Kanaalaq. With winter approaching, he rants that there is no way out and that the arrogant Charlie Halliday may as well have died the moment the plane went down. Kanaalaq does not argue. She simply waits for his fury to burn itself out. Charlie retreats into the cockpit and begins marking the passing days like a prisoner. He sits there numb and hopeless while Kanaalaq continues working. She carries stones across the tundra and builds a series of human-shaped markers called Inuk. Charlie neither understands nor cares what she is doing. On a cold, moonlit night, Kanaalaq wakes him and places a spear in his hands. The two of them hide behind the stone markers. Through the fog, Charlie sees an enormous herd of migrating caribou. Kanaalaq has positioned the Inuk to guide and confuse the animals, creating a narrow path where they can be hunted. As the herd approaches, Kanaalaq runs out and drives it toward Charlie. The stone figures disrupt the animal's escape route. Charlie strikes one caribou, then another. For the first time, he uses Kanaalaq's knowledge instead of relying on his own useless assumptions. Kanaalaq suddenly collapses from weakness. Charlie rushes to her, but she pushes the spear back into his hands and urges him to continue. This opportunity may not come again, and without enough meat, they will never survive the winter. Charlie understands. He chases the stragglers and wrestles with one final caribou in the mud until he wins. The hunt provides the meat and hides they desperately need. It also completes another stage in Charlie's transformation. He is no longer standing apart from the land and calling it primitive. He is learning to move within it, accept its rules, and do the hard work required to survive. But their victory comes at a painful cost. Kanaalaq is flushed with fever, and Charlie finds her forehead burning. He wraps her in warm clothing and holds her close, desperate to help. When she coughs blood, he knows the illness is growing more serious. There is no medicine, no radio, and no hospital anywhere within reach. Soon as Kanaalaq recovers enough to move, she and Charlie begin preparing the caribou meat and hides for winter. She refuses to stop teaching him, even as her own strength disappears. One evening, she finally explains the scar on her wrist. When Kanaalaq was a child, she lived with her parents and younger sister. During a terrible winter, her father was injured and could no longer hunt. He eventually died. With almost no food remaining, her mother walked alone into the snow so the children would have more to eat. It was a deliberate sacrifice, and Kanaalaq understood exactly what it meant. Her younger sister was still starving. To keep the child alive, Kanaalaq cut her own wrist and fed her sister with her blood. The two girls survived until members of their community found them. The scar Charlie noticed is the mark of that choice. Kanaalaq remembers the experience not only with pain, but with pride. Death came for her family, and she managed to keep her sister alive. Story explains everything Charlie has seen in her. Kanaalaq does not survive because she feels no fear or pain. She survives because protecting another person matters more to her than either one. Charlie, who once measured every decision by profit and convenience, is forced to confront a kind of courage he has never possessed. The weather grows colder, and the first snow begins to fall. Kanaalaq makes Charlie a heavy caribou hide coat, adding one more gift to the long list of things keeping him alive. Charlie knows they cannot remain where they are. He decides they should keep moving north until they find a hunting party, a village, or any place with a radio. His plan is to call for a medical evacuation and get Kanaalaq into a hospital. More than 2 months have now passed since the crash. Back in Yellowknife, nearly everyone believes Charlie is dead. Shep and the others hold a memorial service for him. They mourn the gifted pilot they remember, unaware that the selfish, careless version of Charlie truly has disappeared. Out on the tundra, a humbler man has taken his place, one who understands respect, responsibility, and the value of another person's life. As Charlie and Kanaalaq travel across the snow, her condition suddenly collapses. She falls to her knees and coughs blood onto the white ground. Charlie tries to comfort her, but words and warm clothing are no longer enough. He builds a sled from wood, and the ivory tusks that once served as his payment places Kanaalaq on it and pulls her onward. Charlie has no guarantee that they are heading toward help. Months earlier, that uncertainty would have sent him into another rage. Now he simply refuses to abandon her. The vast sky fills with the northern lights, and even Charlie pauses before their beauty. The sight offers a moment of wonder, but it cannot slow Kanaalaq's disease. Their shelter blocks the wind, yet it cannot protect her from what is happening inside her body. Kanaalaq becomes so weak that her voice is barely audible. She gives Charlie another pair of boots she has sewn. She modestly suggests that they are not very good, but explains that they may carry him far enough to find her people. Then Kanaalaq gives him the blessing that defines their journey. She no longer sees him as the arrogant outsider who accepted her life as a business transaction. She recognizes him as her brother and wants him to walk well. Charlie cannot hide his grief. Tears fall onto Kanaalaq's face as he struggles to answer. She saved him after he abandoned her. She fed him, treated his injuries, clothed him, taught him to hunt, and showed him how to live in the country he once thought he had mastered from the air. He would now do anything to save her, yet all he can do is sit beside her while the illness takes away what little strength remains. Night closes over the tent. By morning, Kanaalaq is gone. Charlie rushes outside and follows her footprints across the snow, calling for her. The tracks grow faint and finally disappear beneath the blowing wind. Kanaalaq has chosen the same path her mother once took. She knows Charlie cannot keep pulling her and still reach safety. Rather than let her failing body consume his remaining strength and supplies, she walks alone into the wilderness, leaving him the best chance to live. Her final decision is not surrender. It is one last act of protection. Charlie eventually returns to the shelter. Following what Kanaalaq taught him at the military grave, he gathers stones and builds a cairn for her. He places her tools inside so she will have what she needs on the next plane. Then he adds the 2 valuable tusks. They were the price that first persuaded him to take her aboard, but money no longer means anything beside the life she gave back to him. Carrying Kanaalaq's lessons, clothing, and blessing, Charlie continues alone through the snow. He is only a tiny figure against a landscape that seems to have no end, but he is no longer helpless in it. Kanaalaq has taught him how to read the land, how to hunt, how to protect himself, and how to keep walking when hope is difficult to see. At last, Charlie encounters members of Kanaalaq's people. He has survived, but survival is no longer something he can claim as a personal victory. Every step that brought him there belongs partly to the woman he once underestimated. The tundra never cared that Charlie was a celebrated pilot, a war veteran, or a man accustomed to getting his way. It stripped him down until skill without humility meant nothing. Kanaalaq, despite her illness, possessed the knowledge, patience, and courage that the land demanded. She did more than keep Charlie alive. She taught him what kind of man deserved to return. That's all for today's movie recap. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, comment, and share. I'll see you in the next one.